Project B is expected to launch in 2026,
fall
so
of 2026.
next year. That will be its debut season in the fall. It'll go from November until April 2027, which is the off season of the W. So it's not going to be competitive in terms of actual season. There's going to be 6 teams of 11 players competing in 7 2-week tournaments across Asia, Europe, and the Americas. A lot of questions about that.
Sue Bird just said the quiet part out loud and not in a private room or off the record, but openly on her own podcast. She flat out admitted what so many fans and insiders have suspected for months. In today's WNBA, whoever pays you the most is the one you're going to praise. Bird called out current WNBA players directly, saying what everyone has been thinking but nobody had the courage to say publicly, and she didn't stop there. Bird went straight at the founders of Unrivaled, openly using phrases like rival leagues and making it clear that a major conflict of interest is happening right now, right as the WNBA heads into the most important CBA negotiations in league history. This isn't rumor or speculation. This is a 4-time champion, a league icon, essentially confirming that loyalty in the WNBA has become purely transactional. Look at the timing. Jewel Lloyd just signed with Project B, the literal president of the Players Union. Nika Ogwumik signed too, while she's supposed to be negotiating for WNBA players. Jonquil Jones signed. Kelsey Mitchell's announcement is coming any day. So the real question is, how can you negotiate the WNBA's future while simultaneously helping build a competing league?
She's involved in it. She's the president of the WNBPA. I always have to say that slow. 3 of its vice presidents, Stewie, Fee, Kelsey Plum, are all involved in Unrivaled. Obviously, Fee and Stewie, the co-founders in these rival leagues. What does that mean for the path forward?
The founders, hold on, you gotta hear that again. You gotta
watch that reaction again. It's clear Sabert recognizes the chaos unfolding. Her face reveals the tension she's attempting to maintain diplomacy, avoiding direct criticism of her colleagues. Yet her body language and that head shake when the question of CBA negotiations arises betray her true concern. Here's the full picture. The WNBA's current collective bargaining agreement ends after the 2025 season. As December 2024 rolls around, the Players Association should be intensely focused on negotiating the best possible deal for the players. This is a crucial window, a moment of opportunity. Viewership surged this year, driven by stars like Caitlin Clark, Angel Ree, and a talented rookie class. The league now holds unprecedented leverage. Sponsors are eager, networks are vying for broadcast rights, and the landscape is primed for a significant deal. But instead of capitalizing on this moment, the leadership appears fractured. 3 of the 4 vice presidents are deeply involved in building a competing league, Project B, which threatens to siphon off players' attention. In sponsorship dollars from the WNBA, Breanna Stewart, Nafisa Collier, and Kelsey Plum stars and leaders are also building a rival organization. Meanwhile, Nanika, the union's president, has become a high-profile figure in this new venture. The irony is stark. Those meant to fight for better contracts are simultaneously nurturing a league that undermines the WNBA's future.
She said it, rival leagues. Rival. They are the co-founders of rival leagues, but they are on the board for the WNBPA. Can I get a conflict of interest for 100? Going for 100. Sold. Conflict of interest, man.
Stewie, Fee, Kelsey Plum are all involved in Unrivaled. Obviously, Fee and Stewie, the co-founders in these
rival leagues. She emphasized, are not just off-season opportunities or supplementary competitions, they are outright competitors. That's the most honest assessment anyone close to this situation has publicly acknowledged. In professional sports, rivalry means fierce competition for resources, attention, top players, media coverage, and sponsorship dollars. When 2 leagues are vying for the same limited pool of money, you can't serve both effectively. Sue Bird attempts to soften this reality, suggesting that a healthy WNBA benefits all. But does anyone truly believe that Unrivaled and Project B are hoping the WNBA negotiates a lucrative CBA that pays players enough to eliminate the need for alternative leagues? That's not how business works. These leagues exist because WNBA salaries have historically been life salaries rose significantly. Say to an average of $500,000 instead of $120,000, would Unrivaled be necessary? Would Project B even have the same appeal? The conflict is clear. Co-founders of these rival organizations need the WNBA to remain limited, enough to keep their leagues attractive. They rely on the gap on players feeling underpaid to draw talent and investment away. It's a basic market dynamic, not conspiracy.
But I have to, I'll speak from my own
conflict of interest. Is she bruh? Sue Bird does not want to be the one to throw these players under the bus, but she clearly understands and knows this is a conflict of interest, dog. She knows this.
In my own opinion, I'm not obviously speaking for, in this case, it would be NECA, AT, Stewie, or Fee.
Yeah.
But I just think when the WNBA is healthy and successful, everything else funnels from that. And I think that part of it sometimes gets lost in these conversations.
Now, she's defending the WNBA's non-salary benefits, and this is where things get intriguing. She's correct that Playing in America Matters endorsement deals often require WNBA participation. And competing at the highest level in front of American audiences helps build a player's brand. All of this is true, but what she's not addressing is whether WNBA salaries are fair. She doesn't suggest players shouldn't seek other opportunities. Instead, she argues that the league's value extends beyond pay, highlighting the benefits, exposure, and opportunities the WNBA offers despite its salary limitations. This is a different argument from saying the league pays players what they deserve. The core tension lies here. Sue Bird herself played overseas for years. Earning more money abroad than in the WNBA, she's not anti-player when it comes to fair compensation. But she's pointing out something more subtle. Many players who once positioned themselves as activists fighting for equity now seem to abandon those principles when faced with bigger paychecks from Project B or Unrivaled. She's calling out the hypocrisy, how the rhetoric of empowerment and fairness often disappears when money is on the table.
All the money, absolutely. But the WNBA, even though it's lacked, and I'm the first to tell you, it's lacked in salary for a lot of years.
Yeah.
It hasn't lacked in some other things. And I think
agree.
when players, I know you asked about the negotiations, but just to kind of take it wherever I'm going, I think what sometimes gets lost in this conversation when people talk about, what's this player going to do? Or what would that player do? What would you do? What's your number to go to this place? Or why would you play here? What gets lost when it comes to the WNBA is Playing in America.
Historically, WNBA players have gone overseas to leagues in Russia, Turkey, and China for decades, motivated by better pay despite questionable labor practices, authoritarian regimes, and limited media coverage. Sue Bird's point is valid. No one criticized players for making these choices. It was understood as a financial necessity. But the situation changes with Project B or Unrivaled. These leagues aren't just off-season options. They're competing during the WNBA season, trying to replace or diminish the league's relevance in American sports. If these leagues succeed in pulling players away from WNBA commitments or start vying for TV deals and sponsorships, it becomes a serious threat to the league's existence. The activism angle adds another layer. Players like Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier frame these leagues as efforts to create equity and advance women's basketball. However, if they're also serving as union leaders for the WNBA while launching competing leagues, it blurs the line. It's no longer just social justice. It's self-interested business. There's nothing wrong with business pursuits, but they should be acknowledged honestly, rather than cloaked in social justice rhetoric.
Relies on endorsements, which now is a real player for these players.
Yeah.
But being able to capitalize on endorsements, a lot of these contracts, now it's not that you can't create a new type of contract, but I know my shoe deal, I had to play in the WNBA to get my money.
So a lot of the ecosystem that we live in as Americans playing in the WNBA revolves around playing in America.
Yeah.
And so I just think that
It's the center of the universe for sure.
And another thing that gets lost, like if there's not a league, if we be dramatic.
She's carefully avoiding saying it outright. But what often gets overlooked in this debate is the importance of playing in America. That's the most diplomatic way to acknowledge that alternative leagues don't truly match what the WNBA offers. Players who choose to leave for these leagues are making a short-term, financial gamble that could damage their long-term brand and career prospects. Sue Bird is likely correct that for most players, unless they're Breanna Stewart or Nafisa Collier, the risk isn't worth it. If you're not an owner with equity in these new leagues, you're betting on their stability and ability to deliver on promises like higher salaries and exposure, which isn't guaranteed. The WNBA, despite its salary issues, remains stable because it's backed by the NBA and isn't going anywhere. But what Bird can't openly say is that for players with ownership stakes like Stewart and Collier, the calculus changes. They're not just players. They're league founders and owners. If these leagues succeed, they stand to make huge, possibly generational wealth. That's a compelling reason to take risks that could undermine the WNBA's stability. This creates a serious conflict of interest, especially with them in union leadership, complicating the conversation about fairness and business interests.
What's happening overseas? I don't know. That would be a...
Not really.
I guess...
Not really.
Hopefully we never have to find out. But
No.
The other thing that I don't think gets talked about enough when it comes to people trying to guess what players would do. First of all, it's such an individual decision based on your finances, based on your life, where you are, how old you are, all the things. But second of all is, to piggyback off the building a brand, you want to play in the best league against the best players and feel valued. And speaking for somebody that played in Russia, we played in EuroLeague and there was stakes to those EuroLeague games. There was also a lot of really bad Russian league games that we had to play in. And it can be mind-numbing. And nobody knows. Some of those EuroLeague games, by the way, are some of the best ever. I say this often. That nobody got to see.
Nobody truly knows what happens during those EuroLeague games, and that's precisely the point. No matter how talented or accomplished a player is, if their performances aren't seen or covered by media, it doesn't translate into lasting value beyond the immediate paycheck. The WNBA's real strength lies in its platform, its visibility, its media coverage, and sponsorship activation in the American market. This visibility allows players like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese to secure lucrative endorsement deals that far surpass their WNBA salaries. Clark's Nike contract, for instance, is worth more than what she would earn in the league over several years. And Reese's endorsement portfolio is valued in the millions. These opportunities thrive because they're playing in the US. It's on American television, in front of American audiences, where brands can activate around them. The problem arises if the WNBA loses its monopoly on elite women's basketball in America. If leagues like Unrivaled or Project B can offer comparable exposure and better salaries, the league's unique value proposition crumbles. These new leagues are betting they can generate enough media coverage, sponsorship interest, and visibility to make up for their lack of WNBA affiliation. They are backed by serious financial investments, confident that this strategy will pay off. If successful, it could fundamentally alter the landscape of women's basketball in the United States, challenging the league's position and the opportunities it provides for players and brands alike.
To make the point in a really dumb way, I don't know that you win an ESPY for what you did in EuroLeague.
Exactly. We not people like EuroLeague. That's cool. If Caitlyn watching, people gonna be tapped in. But outside of that, people ain't gonna be. Come on, man. Stop playing games, man. Sue Bird called a few things out here, man. Get down in the comments. Let me know what y'all think about this.
The phrase "you don't win an ESPN for what you did in EuroLeague" sums up the current situation in women's professional basketball. It underscores that recognition, awards, and legacy are mostly rooted in the WNBA, not international leagues. Sue Bird's comments highlight this reality, but also hint at a deeper issue. Players are questioning whether the league's lack of fair compensation still matters. For superstar players like Caitlin Clark, fame and endorsement deals can come from who they are, not where they play. Clark could skip the WNBA altogether and focus on a platform like Unrivaled. Brands like Nike or State Farm would likely still endorse her. Her value is based on her persona, not league affiliation. However, for most WNBA players, the league is essential. It offers visibility, sponsorships, and a chance to build a career in women's basketball. Without the league, many would struggle to find comparable opportunities. In the USTHI's shift poses a major threat to the league's future. Historically, WNBA relied on the fact that players had no real alternative. Overseas leagues offered limited viewership and lower pay. Now, with American media companies backed by investors offering higher salaries, the league's bargaining power is shrinking just when it needs strength. The signing of Nneka Wamick, the Players Association president, with Project B, while still serving as union leader, illustrates this crisis. It sends the message that players no longer believe the WNBA will pay them what they're worth, prompting them to seek opportunities elsewhere. If the union's own leader doubts the league's future, it raises questions about the league's stability. Sue Bird recognizes the seriousness of the crisis. She carefully defends the WNBA's value while acknowledging that players follow the money. This situation signals a need for urgent change, improving pay, conditions, and the league's overall standing before the best players leave for better opportunities. Otherwise, the WNBA risks losing relevance and its top talent. Jeopardizing its future in women's sports, Sue Bird understands that having union leaders involved in rival leagues creates a complicated, almost impossible situation. She also knows that openly criticizing peers like Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier, or her friends and teammates, would spark a major controversy. Instead, she's letting the facts speak for themselves. The reality is that players tend to support whichever entity offers the highest pay. That has been the key dynamic from the start and remains true today. These players aren't necessarily loyal to the WNBA or to the broader goal of growing women's basketball. Their loyalty is to whoever writes the biggest check. There's nothing inherently wrong with athletes prioritizing their earnings. But the problem arises when they try to position themselves as leaders fighting for the collective good of WNBA players while simultaneously building competing businesses that profit from the league's current limitations. The upcoming collective bargaining agreement CBA negotiations will be revealing. How can Nneka Wamick advocate for higher salaries when she's already expressed doubts about the league's ability to pay? How can Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier push for better conditions while also benefiting from the dissatisfaction that makes unrivaled or other alternatives attractive? These conflicts are deeply embedded in the current structure, and there's no simple way to resolve them. An unspoken question is what happens if the WNBA calls the players bluff? If the league says you want to run competing leagues? Fine, but you can't be union leaders and league owners at the same time. The choice will be clear: either fully commit to the league or pursue independent ventures. The stakes are high, and how this plays out could significantly shape the future of women's professional basketball. Would Stewart and Collier resign from the Players Association? Would Wamick give up her presidency? Or would they prioritize their ownership stakes over their union roles? My guess is they'd choose ownership because, as Sue Bird has already explained, players follow the money. For Stewart and Collier, the real financial opportunity isn't in WNBA salaries or even lucrative player contracts. It's in owning a successful league. If Unrivaled proves to be a viable competitor to the WNBA, they could sell their stakes for tens of millions of dollars. That's what this is truly about. When Bird says these players lack loyalty, when she points out they'll speak highly of whoever pays the most, and when she labels Unrivaled as a rival league, she's not speculating. She's describing the reality unfolding before our eyes. The WNBA is facing an existential threat, and surprisingly, that threat is being driven by its own union leadership. It's one of the strangest conflicts of interest in professional sports, a situation everyone seems to be ignoring or pretending isn't a problem. The bigger question for the league is, what are players who aren't founders or owners supposed to think? They're just trying to secure fair contracts in a healthy league, but they see union leaders who are actively involved in competing businesses. Do they trust that the union is genuinely fighting for the best possible deal for all players? Or do they see it as a conflicted entity that may be more aligned with personal financial interests? Sue Bird's candid comments have publicly highlighted this dilemma and it's a conversation the WNBA needs to have openly. Yet nobody seems willing to be the first to address it directly. Bird has diplomatically laid it all out. Making her point clear now, it's up to others to have the courage to confront these conflicts head-on. Otherwise, the league's future remains uncertain, hanging in the balance while everyone continues to pretend there's no problem. What do you think? Is Sue Bird right to call out these issues? Should Nneka Womack step down as the Players Association president? Can Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier truly serve players' interests while also running a competing league? Drop your thoughts in the comments and tell me if you believe the WNBA is handling this situation appropriately.